What would you do if the person that you love the most became the thing that you feared the most for your life for? Wolfman 2025 isn't just a creature feature. It's a tale of descent into utter terror as a family battles not just a monster, but the horrifying reality that their once known protector has become their utter predator. A father's love, a husband's promise, all undone by a simple family trip. The question is, can love survive when survival is itself on the line? Follow along as I discuss this very fact, talking about Wolfman 2025. Before we dig in, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for future movie reviews and film analysis.
It's my job to protect you.
Blake, what is that?
The story begins through the eyes of a young adventurous boy living out in the barren woods of Oregon alone with his father. The ex-military man cautiously watches over his son, employing a strict approach to fathering. Keen on the game of the hunt, the two traverse through their local woods in search for game. Unexpectedly, their trip comes to an end when a mysterious creature stalks and races towards them. Making a close escape, the young boy overhears his father discussing his sightings on his radio as he details his plan to silence the evil infesting the forest. 30 years later, that young boy is now a stay-at-home dad in the city of San Francisco. From this point forward, the story centers around Blake, his displeased short-haired wife Charlotte, and their curious daughter Ginger. Sharing a rough patch in their relationship, the news of Blake's father's official passing sends the family on a road trip to Blake's childhood home deep in the woods of Central Oregon. Unfortunately for this family, the fun is short-lived when a familiar creature derails the moving van off the cliff of a road along their long traversal. Desperately clawing to escape the wreckage, they were not alone, as the tormented trio raced into the woods, eventually passing into the abandoned childhood home. This morbid beast, racing towards them, stalked the residents throughout the remainder of the film, prompting Blake to hunker down. Barricading the front door and keeping watch over his worried family, he progressively grows ill. A diseased mutation spikes his primal senses, while simultaneously depreciates every human function he once had. He is no longer the father that they grew to love. It is at this time that the horrified Charlotte must weigh the risks of staying with her decaying husband in desperate need of help, while ensuring her only child's safety. Now, starting with the great parts of this film, I think something this movie expertly portrays is the transition between wolf and human. Because obviously the father, unfortunately, he is infected with this disease, this virus, and it causes him to slowly turn into this disgusting, morbid creature. And the transition is really interesting, watching him decay. The movie's patient. It's patient on taking you through this decay, and you see him slowly descend into a primal beast. And you can see an aspect of his humanity and his character through a lot of the variations of this descent. And it's enticing, it's interesting, and it's especially interesting to see his character, his perspective, escalating into this beast, while on the other side with his wife, they're both confused by each other. When he's turning into this wolf man, into this monster, he is losing his humanity literally. He can't speak English, he's starting to mumble, he's growling, he's like transforming into something disgusting, and he can no longer understand English. And he starts to see his family as these like kind of horrifying wraiths. So he himself is scared in the sense as his family is scared. You see on the other side with the wife, he is mumbling. He doesn't make any sense. He's starting to smell. He's like tearing away at himself. And it's a horrifying sight for her. And they don't know how to communicate, and it only gets worse and worse. So that's definitely the best aspect of this film. Also, we get a lot of practical effects. The practical effects are pretty interesting. I like seeing he looks pretty good as this decaying creature, watching the decay. And when you see more into the beast that was also following them, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's not that good. It's nowhere near the levels of The Thing. Definitely not. Still funny how we still can't replicate that sort of just genius. Now, I also believe the father-daughter relationship is sweet. There's a lot of family stuff in here. That's something I kind of like about Blumhouse movies, is they always give us good family dynamics. And he has the father and daughter. They have a great relationship, and it's just realistic. It feels authentic. But at the same time, it suffers because I don't think we get as much time with them together, and we don't see them, I guess, there's a lot that happens that just doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense between the two. And a lot of the language that they share is what was kind of cringy and corny, which I think everybody in the audience saw coming, was a lot of what he is telling her is sort of language used to foreshadow the monster that he's going to become. And I caught it every time, and for me, it just took me out of it, and they were trying a little too hard with that. But overall, you develop an appreciation for these characters. You feel for the father, you feel for the mother, and you feel for the daughter. I like these small casts. It's not too big. There's not too many different characters to follow. And it's a story about family, and I love a good story about family. And it's a shame to see this family torn apart, literally and figuratively. Now, let's talk about the downfalls, because there's a lot of those too. This is not perfect by any means. And it's one of the things is it doesn't do anything new. This isn't something we haven't seen before. Other films have done this much better of doing the friend, the family slowly turning into the monster that you fear the most. And this movie does not do the best job at that. It is fun, but no. And most of the time, it's kind of empty. Once they get to this house, not much really happens. It's sort of just waiting in the house, watching him decay, and dealing with that issue. That's about it. There's not too many revelations, not too many discoveries. There isn't anything we really learn about any of these characters. There's not a further analysis into that. So it's kind of boring in that sense. And it immediately, once they're in that house, it's a big story of cat and mouse, just chasing around to point A to point B, from point C to point D. It's that over and over again. And it's a little repetitive. It gets a little tiresome. Also, everything in this movie is pretty predictable. There was maybe one thing that caught me off guard, I'm not going to mention, but it's all pretty predictable. So don't go in thinking that there's going to be some great aha moments. And really what was most disappointing for me was that there just wasn't much weight into seeing the main protagonist turn into the main antagonist. I really was expecting a heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching experience seeing this great father escalate into this monster. And there just wasn't, it just didn't capture me that well. And it probably won't you either. It won't capture you that way either. But I think that was the biggest miss. It needed to be a home run, and it hit a single. Also, there was just another big piece of missed potential here. The concept of having three people, a small wife and her little daughter, stuck in a house with a monster for a good amount of time with no resources. That's an interesting concept, right? Well, that's the thing about this movie. This isn't, they seem to get in and out of this house pretty frequently, and I think it could have been so much more interesting if they're all in that house and they can't do anything. The poor wife, there's nothing to fight with. There's nowhere to go. She has no experience in this. She's a journalist from San Francisco. Of course, she doesn't have any experience out here in the woods dealing with a monster in the house. I mean, nobody does, obviously. But that could have been interesting, right? And we unfortunately didn't get that. There was a lot of just point A to point B jumping around. Missed potential. But overall, despite the negatives, I did enjoy it. It's a fun movie. It's a dumb, fun movie. And I think Blumhouse is perfect at doing dumb fun. This is more dumb than a lot of their other ones, but I think you'll definitely enjoy it if you're a Blumhouse fan, Blumhouse horror movie fan. You'll have a good time. Don't go in with really high expectations. Just go in thinking you're gonna have a good time. It's a good date movie, and you're in for maybe a scare or two going in to see this. Now, if you haven't yet already, I would really appreciate it if you gave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I love doing these movie reviews. I go to see new films all the time. I also talk about a lot of the classics, a lot of the hidden gems a lot of us don't think about nowadays. So if you'd like to follow along with me on that adventure, please be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. But I would like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know, have you seen this film already? Are you planning on seeing it? Is this something that maybe I sold you on? Maybe you will go see it now? I'd love to hear in the comments below. Anyways, though, I always appreciate your time spent with me. I wish you well, and I'll see you soon.